Drivers Mate podcast, right? Subscribe, like, share. Should DNA testing be mandatory, right? When talking about children, giving birth, parental matters. Should it be mandatory that every child gets a DNA test with their father? Because obviously we know the mother is the mother of the child. That's not in question. But should every father be legally required to take a DNA test if he's there with the mother in the family's life, right? Part of the family unit. Do you think that's a good idea, right? Let me know below. Comment, let me know what you think. Me personally, I think it is a great idea. It's an excellent idea, right? Because although it's something that kind of goes under the radar in society, paternity fraud is rife, right? In nearly every family, there is some skewing of or muddying of the water of who this child's parent might be, right? You've got this one brother, this one sister that looks different to everybody else, right? Don't they? And you've got this one cousin that we all say his kids ain't his kids, right? And he knows they ain't his kids because they don't look nothing like him, right? They look like somebody else, right? We've all got somebody like that, a friend or cousin, you name it, right? And I think it's really unfair, no knock to women, that women can be so unaccountable of who their child's parents are, right? Not only is it bad for the potential stepfather or real father, it's bad for the children, right? Every child should have the right to know who their biological father is, who their biological mother is, right? Because not only is it important on a psychological level, it's important on a health level and a heredity heritage level, right? You need to know your potential health threats, right? What is in your father's lineage, right? And you also need to know where you come from, who you are, right? There's a reason in olden days we have family crests and family trees, because it's important. You can't be a king if you can't trace your lineage, right? It's important, even though obviously we're not all kings, but just as a side note, you should take your family as seriously as the royal family takes their family, right? Because it's genealogy, it's generations of human existence that is evolving over time, right? It's very important. So you have to know who your parents are, right? And parents have the right to know if that is their child, right? Because it's crazy. Imagine, you don't even have to imagine, with the advent of social media, we can see case after case after case after case, not even just on the old Judge Judy level or Maury level. You are not the father, right? I thought this was my kid. The woman had me believing it was my kid, and she knew all along this wasn't my kid, right? It's terrible. You've been protecting for that kid, providing for that kid, loving that kid, paying for that kid, raising that kid, and it's not your kid, right? Sure, there's a place and a time for being a step parent, right? Commend people that do it, right? But not everyone should have the choice, right? Just like everyone should have the choice to consent to sexual interactions, right? Sexual intercourse. You should have the choice to consent. Now, if you've been finessed, right? Or for instance, if you had sex with a woman and you come to find out it was a transgendered man, right? You have essentially been sexually assaulted, right? You didn't consent to having sex with a transgender person. You consented to having sex with a woman, right? So just like that, you consented that you and this woman were gonna co-produce a child, right? But the child's not yours. So where do you stand now, right? So I believe it's a very good idea that DNA testing should be mandatory, just to eliminate any confusion of who and who is not the parent, right? It's the most fair thing to do, right? And it's gonna stop paternity fraud, and it's gonna help minimize cases of child abuse, and it's gonna minimize cases of like where people pay for their children, right? I don't know what you call that. Like when a woman puts child support, that's the word, child support, right? It's going to eliminate cases of fraudulent child support, and it's going to eliminate cases of child abuse, right? Because if a child doesn't have its parents, not by any fault of its own, that is technically child abuse, right? So the child should have a right to two parents and in growing up in a safe, stable household, right? And you're not going to have that if, for instance, you've been living a lie all this time thinking that this person is your dad. Now this person finds out he's not your dad and he decides to leave your family, or worse, he decides to do something violent to you or your parent, right? Off the premise that your mother didn't tell the truth about who your dad is, right? So we can eliminate a lot of that, right? A lot of poverty, intergenerational poverty, by making sure DNA testing is done. We'll find out who the father is. If the father doesn't want to be in the child's life, fine. Then that father could potentially pay child support if it's the right thing to do. But for instance, here's another scenario right off the back of that. What if the father of the child told the mother, I do not want to have this child, right? That father should have the right to not have the child, right? And if the mother decides, I'm going to have the child anyway, the financial burden and the raising of that child should be the responsibility of the mothers, right? Not the fathers. Because he didn't consent to conceiving the child in the first place. Yes, you can argue he laid down and had sex with a woman without condom or what have you, right? Yes, he did that. But if he did, he explicitly told the woman, I don't want a child, right? And she went ahead anyway. That happens a lot. And because that happens a lot, women will get with a guy that they want, right? Have sex with him and have a child for him, but then they'll have to get a guy like just off the fly, like off the back end of that relationship, right? And this guy is going to be the cover guy, right? The full guy for the guy that she actually wants, right? It happens all the time, right? So mandatory testing is going to save 3 lives: the mother's life, the child's life, and the father's life, right? So I agree with it. I think it's a good idea. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is it a bad idea? Should it be done right? And should a father be able to give consent to conceive or not, right? And if he doesn't give consent, should he still have to pay child support? Should he still have to be responsible for the life of that child, right? Let me know what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Drivers Mate Podcast. Let's get it.